My name is Thomas Bennett, and the last place I expected to feel like a stranger was the lake cabin my late wife and I built with our own hands. 26 years earlier, Linda and I had bought 5 acres beside a quiet lake. We couldn't afford contractors, so every weekend we worked together. I laid the floorboards. She painted every wall herself. We planted maple trees that were now taller than the roof. After Linda passed away from cancer 3 years ago, I couldn't bring myself to visit often. The cabin held too many memories. But every anniversary of our wedding, I spent one weekend there, sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, talking to her as if she was still beside me. That tradition kept me going. This year, I packed my truck, bought fresh flowers for her favorite vase, and drove the 3 hours to the lake. As I turned onto the gravel road, I noticed something strange. Cars. 6 of them. Parked in front of the cabin. Music drifted through the trees. Children were laughing. I slowed to a stop. For a moment, I wondered if I had taken the wrong road. But no. There was the old oak tree Linda had carved our initials into. This was our cabin. I stepped out of the truck and walked toward the porch. The front door was wide open. Inside, nearly 20 people were eating, laughing, and taking family photos. None of them were my family. A woman looked up first. "Oh," she said casually, "you must be the maintenance man." I blinked. "I'm sorry." Before I could say another word, my daughter-in-law's mother, Carol, walked out carrying a tray of food. She stopped when she saw me. For just a second, her smile disappeared. Then she forced another one. "Oh, Thomas. What are you doing here?" "Ich zerde hier." "What am I doing here?" "This is my cabin." She laughed awkwardly. "Well, Emily said you never come anymore." I looked around the room. Family photos had replaced Linda's pictures. Our handmade quilt was folded over a couch. Someone had moved my wife's rocking chair onto the porch. Then Carol said the words that made my heart sink. "We've been using the cabin for almost a year." I looked at her in disbelief. "A year?" She nodded as though it were perfectly normal. Emily gave us a key. My daughter had given away the only place that still felt like home, without ever asking me. And as I stood there surrounded by strangers enjoying my wife's final gift to our family, I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. Someone had decided that because Linda was gone, I no longer mattered. I stood in the doorway, unable to believe what I was seeing. Children were running through the living room. Someone was grilling on the deck. A teenage boy had tied a hammock between the maple trees Linda and I had planted together. It was as if my wife's cabin had become someone else's vacation home. I looked at Carol. "Who told you this was your place to use?" She smiled nervously. "Emily said you hardly ever came here." "That doesn't answer my question." She hesitated. She gave us a key. I reached into my pocket and held up my own key. There were only 2 keys. One was mine. The other stayed in my daughter's emergency lockbox. Carol looked away. Before I could speak again, my son-in-law, Ryan, walked out carrying a cooler. "Thomas." He acted as though nothing was wrong. "I was going to call you." "Were you?" "Yes." "When?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Emily thought the cabin shouldn't sit empty." I looked around the room. "So you decided to move your wife's parents into it?" "It's only for weekends." I pointed toward the walls. "My wife's paintings are gone. Our family photographs are missing. My fishing gear isn't where I left it." Ryan sighed. "We organized everything." "You mean you replaced everything?" Carol folded her arms. "Thomas, you're overreacting. It's just a cabin." Those 5 words hurt more than I expected. Just a cabin. I looked around slowly. My wife spent 6 months painting these walls. She stitched every curtain in this house. We celebrated 23 anniversaries here. My grandson took his first steps on this floor. And you call it just a cabin? The room became silent. Then I noticed something else. Linda's favorite rocking chair was gone. I turned to Ryan. Where is it? He looked uncomfortable. We moved it. Where? Carol answered instead. It didn't match the new furniture. My heart sank. What did you do with it? Nobody answered. At that moment, I realized they hadn't simply borrowed my cabin. They had started erasing my wife from it. I left the cabin without another word. I was too angry to say something I'd regret. Instead, I drove straight back home. The next morning, I called Emily. Dad. Where are you? At work. We need to talk. She came over that evening. The moment she walked inside, she knew something was wrong. Dad. I went to the cabin. Her face immediately turned pale. I can explain. I hope you can. She sat down quietly. I gave Ryan a key last year. Why? His parents wanted a quiet place to relax. And you thought giving away your mother's cabin without asking me was acceptable. Tears filled her eyes. I didn't think you'd mind. You didn't think. She lowered her head. Then she admitted something even worse. Ryan said the cabin would eventually belong to us anyway. Istère daher. What? He said it made sense to treat it like family property now. I slowly stood. The cabin belongs to me. And one day, if I choose, it may belong to you. But nobody has the right to take it while I'm still alive. Emily began crying. I know. I made a terrible mistake. Then she whispered something unexpected. Dad, I didn't know they redecorated. I thought they were only visiting. I believed her. She looked genuinely shocked when I told her Linda's paintings had been removed and the rocking chair had disappeared. Emily immediately called Ryan. He admitted everything. His parents had slowly begun treating the cabin as their own. Each visit brought new furniture, new decorations, new family photographs, until almost nothing of Linda remained. Emily hung up the phone and looked at me. I'm going to fix this. The following Saturday, Emily arrived at the cabin before sunrise. Ryan was already there with his parents. She walked inside and quietly said, Everyone needs to leave. Carol laughed. Don't be ridiculous. Emily didn't smile. This cabin belongs to my father. Not me. Not Ryan. And certainly not you. Ryan tried to argue. We've done so much work here. Emily shook her head. Without permission. She handed them several boxes. Everything you brought belongs inside these. By afternoon, every picture, decoration, and piece of furniture they had added was gone. Then Emily surprised me. She spent the next 2 days putting everything back exactly as Linda had left it. She found the rocking chair in Carol's garage. She rehung every photograph. She even tracked down the handmade quilt that had been packed into a storage box. When I returned the following weekend, I opened the front door and froze. It looked exactly the way Linda had left it. Emily stood quietly beside the fireplace. I'm sorry, Dad. I forgot that memories don't belong to the person who inherits them. They belong to the person who lived them. I hugged her. You made a mistake. But you had the courage to fix it. Ryan apologized as well. His parents eventually admitted they had crossed the line. They never returned to the cabin without an invitation. Now, every anniversary, I still drive to the lake with fresh flowers. I sit in Linda's rocking chair, drink my morning coffee, and watch the sun rise over the water. The cabin isn't valuable because of the land, or the building, or the view. It's valuable because every wall carries the story of the woman I loved. And I learned one lesson I'll never forget. People may inherit property, but they should never assume they inherit someone else's memories. Some places aren't just houses. They're the last pieces of a heart that never stopped loving.